Well, hopefully by now you know that risk comes in many different forms, flavors, and of course different seasonings, right? Well, in this video, we're going to cover the three different types of risk and how we can identify them. And part of that is classifying and identifying that risk, right? So we want to go away, identify what that risk is, but we need to know what they are. Well, the very first component of that is our inherent risk. That's one form of different risks that exist within the business. And this is risk that's always there, right? It doesn't go away. It's inherent to that business or inherent to that industry that we're in. Maybe it's a declining industry or maybe it's a scaling industry. And one of those examples could be something like going out of business, right? That's an inherent part of running a business. Maybe we're struggling to get customers. Maybe they're going to different customers because they've got a better cost. It makes more sense for obviously businesses to go to them. Maybe their products and services are better than ours. So as part of that process of inherent risk, well, that's an inherent risk with any business, right? Of going out of business. And there's ways to deal with that, of course, and obviously through marketing and advertising and things like that. But in the form of classifying risk, well, inherent risk is a type of risk that's always inherent to that business or to your business. The other area is our residual risk. And this is usually risk that's kind of left over, right? And if we start talking about risk, well, we're putting in controls to circumvent a specific risk. So maybe our risk up here is our main risk. We're going to go away with that risk. And then maybe that risk is something. And then we're going to go away. And by implementing that risk, maybe out of that risk come three new risks. And then we are going to have to go away and obviously put in controls and functional features then to circumvent those little risks, or I like to call them risklets in this case, that come out of that. And that's residual risk. So residual risk is just something that's left over of us going away and putting in a control to a certain risk, and then that risk comes out with additional risks, features, or functionality based on those type of risks. And this could be something like maybe buying a vehicle, right? We go buy a car, maybe it's an older model vehicle, something that's from the 1930s or 40s, and that vehicle has no safety features, right? And then if we have no safety, someone's going to say, obviously, no safety, that's a risk. And then for us, we may have to go implement something like seat belts or airbags, right? Um, now, if you just write airbags, right? These are things that we can then go away and implement, obviously, to circumvent that main risk. Now, if we may be the main risk in this case, I'm just going to put risk here, which is, there's no safety features, and that risk is obviously would be something like death if we get into a car accident. Well, in order that we get into a car accident, maybe we have to put in a seatbelt. Okay, that's great, and then that circumvents the risk of death. But maybe, we've got something like head injuries or other problems that come with that, right? There's minor things that come out of that risk. So for us, the initial risk is the lack of safety features. So maybe for us, if the lack of safety features, we add our seatbelt in, then that can help us and result in smaller injuries like cuts and bruises. And then we address that risk by maybe bringing in something like the airbag. And then that airbag will help us prevent us getting maybe minor injuries, for example. And I'll just say minor injuries. So residual risk, kind of think of that as leftover risk. We address a certain main risk in that case, and then we've got maybe little smaller risks that come out of that. Could be, maybe the main risk is death, and then out of that could be something like head injury. Maybe we've got cuts, bruises, etc. So where the main risk was something maybe like that, but then we've got then if we compare that to something like no safety features, that could be a big component. And then we've got maybe other things like head injury. And then we've got another risk let out of that could be something like cuts and bruises. So as a residual risk, they're the ways that we would sort of define that residual risk by the lack of safety features. And then we add our seatbelt. Then we end up with the residual risk, right? So that's obviously circumventing our main issue which was lack of safety. And then we have our smaller injuries like cuts and bruises or minor head injuries. And then we address that by introducing the airbags. And that's the result of addressing finally that residual risk. So that's residual risk. And the final one here is our current risk. current risk is exactly what it means. And basically what I've written out, right? It's current. It's that time of presence. Maybe we've got maybe an internal risk officer or a risk department that they go away and they conduct regular risk assessments within our business across business, technology, infrastructure, security, people. They go away, they do their risk analysis, and they come back with key risks across the business. Well, if these risks haven't been made public to maybe the security team, so I'm just going to put these are the risks, and this is our security team over here, and we haven't received them, well, then they're current risks to the business, and we haven't gone away and been able to put in controls or circumvent those risks, right? So uh, obviously we've got to address them at some stage, but in the current state, well, they're basically not addressed. So as they're not addressed, there's obviously current risks that sit within the business, again, being not able to obviously fix them. So that's current risk. So think of that as the same sort of scenario with a car example as well, right? So should we go buy a vehicle? So I'm going to put car. We want to go buy this car. Uh, and if we're in a hurry, maybe we don't do our due diligence, we don't have that custom report that we've got to go maybe pay someone and say pay someone to go there and do a report on that vehicle and tell us that the engine works, the tires are all great, the muffler's all good, the doors open, electronic windows and doors open and stuff like that. And it basically gives us the condition of the car. Maybe it's roadworthy, maybe it's not roadworthy. If we don't know about it, then we can't fix it, right? So if we go buy that vehicle and we're in a hurry and then we've done our condition report, well, then maybe there's, 10 things that's wrong with the car. We've got to go away and then fix those risks. So that's current risk. So the idea of current risk is a point of time scenario that basically identifies that there's a risk there and we have a single given time across that risk. So we're then going to have to go away and fix those risks. And obviously, as they become issues, and we have to address them. So they're the three kind of areas when we talk about risk classification and inherent risks to the business. There's residual risk, like leftover risks. And then finally, there are current risks, which are obviously at that given point of time that we have to go away and address as well. I hope you've enjoyed this video. See you all in the next video, and thank you for watching.